3, 2, 1, action.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said in the last podcast conversation, in between campaigns, in between running around, asking for the mandates of the people, once in a while we'll just come in here to try to analyze some insights relative to industry. I mean, this is, like you said, this is not a podcast. This is a master class.
That's what scares me.
So, guys, welcome to White Mics one more time to enhance industrial conversations. And I'm glad to have somebody from South Africa.
She needs to introduce herself. I love how she introduces herself.
Yeah, I like how she introduces herself. In fact, I mean, it's Zulu, right? Zulu.
It's Zulu.
What is it about a tongue thing?
The tongue thing is Kosa. My name is actually
In fact, when I
Kosa.
say tongue thing, I mean it's very ambiguous when you say tongue thing.
But trust me, I understood. No, it's Kosa. I'm
Xhosa.
a mixture of about
So,
4 cultural
Xhosa.
groups here, Kosa in South Africa.
Oh, okay. 4 cultural groups.
Yeah.
So you're Xhosa,
I'm Kosa, I'm Zulu, I'm Swati, and a bit of Sotho.
Xhosa and Zulu is not the same thing.
It's not the same. They're both Ngunis, but they're not the same. It will be like how you guys will differentiate the tweets,
Chi
speaking
and
the
Fati.
Khan and the Fatties.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So welcome to White Mics.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
My
we're
name
glad
is
to-
Nonceba Ntintili from
But-
Johannesburg, Secunda.
Is it intentional to do? Can you do that for everything you pronounce? That
No,
thing you guys do.
it's certain vowels that not even vowels per se, but it's certain pronunciations that we have.
Right.
Like Nonceba or Nokolo.
So yes, I'm glad to have joined here by co-founder for
Yeah.
FulLCircl, Ricky Tenneson.
Thank you so
today.
much for the invite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Great to
for
have
the
you.
for the conversation.
Yeah.
So as usual, but I was wondering why you prefer to sit here instead of the middle.
Patriarchy. I know you guys I'm glad Shivas is not dead. They were like, oh, she's our guest in the middle. But I also like to be treated like part of the family. I'm
Right.
easy like that. And I just believe also men also deserve the grace since,
Political answer.
Yes, and in this tonight, I will, it's definitely sitting on you, sir.
You're just trying to wrap us. I mean, for me, I thought that it was visually, aesthetically sitting in the middle could just make the production.
It's
work.
so obvious that because
Or
I'm
you
the
think that
only
because
female.
it's always become the norm.
Yeah,
where
because I'm
women
going to be
are-
the only female. I'm going to be sitting in, it's,
Too cliche.
yeah, it's so cliche.
But how's the South African music industry relative to how women are enabled? How is it like? I mean, in this kind of conversations and narratives regard relative to patriarchy and deliberate enablement. Because from the way you speak, I mean, we probably may have come from the point where we say, well, the women deserve the grace. I mean, essentially more or less trying to communicate the fact that we think that you just need that special spotlight, but from the way you speak, you kind of disagree with those affirmative actions.
Not to say disagree, but because I've been in the music industry I've grown up in this industry and I've been around male most of my time. So I never dissociate myself from the team. I'm always part of the guys, part of the boys. So I'm so used to it. That's just my personal.
You're so used to it is enough not to want to feel special, to be made to feel special. Or to be made
I'm
to
special enough, so I know I'm special enough. My energy should be special as a woman, not necessarily because I'm a woman, also as a human being, as a person. And I also like the balance and just, I would say, looking at each other as equals most of the time, especially, I would say, mentally and emotionally, that intelligence is quite important as well, to check ourselves, how we level, with the energy. But not necessarily in terms of female, males, and so forth.
Yeah.
But in the industry in South Africa, we still have a long way to go, definitely. In terms of contracts, treatment, I mean, obviously women do have certain preferences that they would need more than men. I mean, we give birth, we get pregnant. As a woman artist, you disappear for 9 months, chances are coming back in the industry is going to be hard. Men don't have those gaps that they can take, they take like women. So there's a lot, even contracts. Men normally get better contracts than women,
They do?
They do.
How is it? Why? What's
Men
happening?
are more
What's the matter?
aggressive. Men are more corporate. Men know how to negotiate. Spaces, as you can see here, mostly. I mean, I'm the only female, so to stay in the space like this, to do business, some women cannot actually.
But consistently in South Africa, I think that in the last few years, you've been having like successive female artists.
Yeah.
I mean, breakthrough stars coming out, DJs, talents.
It's actually our main
getting-
focus. Going to the next month of August, it's particularly like
It's a focus.
it's a focus month for women, where most of
Okay.
the events is just women. The lineups are 90% women. You understand? The events are produced by women. So there's that month, that entire month is just focusing on women.
So part of the reasons why South Africa continues to see some successful female talents, it's also because of some of these affirmative actions, some of these
Yes.
activities
Yes.
deliberately meant to
Oh no,
spotlight
there's
the women
definitely a
and
big
put them out there.
spotlight. There's definitely there's some activities and action that has been put in place.
So generally, women in South Africa obviously agree and admit that women do need a special grace.
No, definitely. There'll be some who'll be saying, hey, please don't speak on our behalf with you and how you feel amongst men, So it's like I said, with my experience and because I've worked in the industry for so long, I'm comfortable. But other women still need that special preferences. I don't, because I think merit matters for me than being a female. Do I qualify? Can I do the work? That's what matters to me. But for some, it does matter that I'm female. I need preference because maybe previously disadvantaged spaces we come from normally restrict women. Culture, African culture is like the first stumbling block for women, So yeah.
But what was the eventual cause of some of, these intentional actions or affirmative actions? Like, because a lot of the times, example, like maybe World Women Day on all of those things, it happens, but the realities of it, like I'm saying that all these, like in the month of August where you are intending to do events for women and all of that,
Yeah.
what is the eventual, like,
The
outcome?
outcomes.
Yeah, does it really impact, the situation, or it's just,
It adds
I think it
a
adds.
bit of movement.
Yeah.
It does
And
shake it a
I'm
bit.
glad that she
yeah.
spoke about the fact that now, obviously can't speak about even though there's more to be done, we obviously can talk about some of the exciting female breakthrough stars that keep coming out from South Africa without some of these things. Today, one of the biggest talents from
Tyler.
Africa to the world is Tyler. And Tyler came from South-
Congratulations.
Yes,
She just picked
congratulations.
another one.
And I'm sure part of the reasons why Tyler has been successful among all these other DJs and talents that have come up, it's also because generally there's that increased awareness. What that I've seen is like gives
Sadiq, not to cut you, but do you think, don't you think it's a more of a strategic thing? I mean, in terms of
for the individual labels.
exactly more than maybe South Africa being intentional to push a female. For me, I think that if it's your time and the sound, everything about you is right, it doesn't necessarily mean that because they are pushing females, it could have been anybody.
I think what this does in
I
industries,
hear you,
what this
bro.
does,
Yeah.
I get you, but I think what this does to industries is create a certain level of awareness that gets everybody like fully primed to want to enable the woman in understanding the issues, and so you can. No, I don't think I should use the word sympathize. So you can basically understand and put yourself at that point where you can actually enable them. These things create a certain level of awareness and conversations. Now, people are waking up to the challenges women face in industry. A lot more men are being whipped into line to the things that continue to affect and hold them captive to achieving their full potential.
Because I asked that because it will
And
obviously
in South Africa's case, for instance, at least now we've seen an outcome, and we all the total sum of the things that influences the outcome.
Definitely.
You
In terms
can't
of
take it out.
also support, aid, infrastructure, you understand? There's preference to say, listen, for women, we're extending this
Yeah.
grace. For women, we're doing so forth. So for those who are willing and searching and really want to change the whole outcome, they do get that benefit of a doubt. They do get that space. but we cannot catch up with the 100 years of patriarchy.
Right.
Currently, we still have a lot of, yeah.
And then,
This is- this-
yeah,
I mean,
there
that's
is
just this is a very important conversation, and if we want us to dwell on it, this is like a whole
It's another one,
five,
yeah, it's not-
five podcast conversation. But guys, the more reason why we had, what's the short form of calling you?
Never.
oh God.
Just
Never.
on the click. Never.
Never. Never. So the main reason why we had Neba on was that we met, started having conversations.
Yeah.
She's working with some labels, currently doing some work with Platoon, and just casual conversations. Then the Sarkodie's rap or Sarkodie's opinion about labels came up, and we had to discuss and thought, these things, we keep having these discussions in silos in the background
Yeah.
without anybody having to put it out, so to inform industry. Point is that Sarkodie has been very consistent with his view about staying independent. And I like opinionated people. I like people that like to stick out and go alone, even when everybody feels like this is the direction to go.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I like about Sarkodie. His strong opinions and his ability to stick to his opinions. Sarkodie thinks that Sarkodie has come far as an independent artist.
Definitely.
He really believes truly that he needs to own his masters and have control over it than having to give it to anybody. He's also been very big about purity. He's a purist when it comes to the arts, and I think that
Or maybe you want to say creative control. Maybe he's big about.
he's big about creative control, and he's big about, keeping it pure in the ways he sees it, without being influenced to turn it into any direction.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, he's not been open to label conversations. But I disagree. I like him for the view and for the opinion, and I respect that. The fact that he's stuck to that opinion and has still been able to make it. One of, if not actually, the most recognizable African rapper today. Having to do it basically on his own. And and that's exciting. But here's where I disagreed with him, where, like I was saying to you off air, that I feel that labels are very important to industry. And I feel that for the African, for the continent.
Yeah.
I know in the more matured markets, labels have been there, done that. There's been a lot of lessons and there's been a lot of things. But one of the things that in all of whether they are good or bad, is it's helped to structuralize those industries. So the questions I wanted to find out from you is, what is the conversation being had? When you sit back on labels today, how do lobbies want to operate against the backdrop of some of these opinions, which I know you know about? And then secondly, what's your view regarding labels' relationship or the resistance of labels in Africa or emerging markets such as Ghana?
I think maybe we first have to look at history. How the labels have been operating in Africa for the past decades.
Yeah.
It kind of poses them in a negative view, because obviously when we look at the master issue, ownership, understanding publishing, and so forth, the contracts have been, we also mentioned that off air, that the contracts have been really bending away from the artist, and you find that the artists are mostly compromised after signing the contract. But I would say, just to answer that, I wouldn't say it's bad or good.
This is a label's fault.
Yeah, you understand? I wouldn't say it's bad or good. I would say independence is good. I would say a label is good. I believe that not all artists will be able to operate under a label or get those contracts. And I believe not all artists will be able to operate independently. It depends what you're targeting. As an artist, you need to have a layout and see where you're going with your music, and understand also your placing in music. Where are you? What are you trying to achieve? Then those things should direct you what can work for you. There's certain artists that I can truly advise to say, listen, you can do it independently. You understand? You can pull this together. And mostly those are the artists that have an overview of business, and they understand business. They understand the brand. They understand how to trade within the system. Yeah. So they can focus and have the processes of the music business.
Yeah.
You understand? Then we find the music industry, which is more like it has more competition, is more aggressive, and it's like investment. We're talking about big monies that get investment, and it could be good or bad investment and so forth. So there's certain artists who need that direction, who needs to be put somehow in a pedestal. Who Tyler alone, if I could say using a name, couldn't have made it with a South African contract where she is today.
She made it on the label. I mean, she couldn't have got that traction that she's getting without the label.
You understand. So that's what I'm saying. There's so much the
But
label
what will make the kind of Tyler deal bad?
What will make?
What would make it bad? Because obviously, I mean, Tyler is a typical example of
What will make it bad will be her
of
not.
why we need a label.
Yes.
I mean, because
Yes.
globalization is here, technology is impacting consumption of media content.
Yes.
The
That's why I'm
world, the
bringing
world is
her-
in our hands now.
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing her as an example. She's a perfect artist that works well finding a label and being part of a label contract. But there's certain artists like one I'm working with, like Msaki, she's an indie artist and she's more of a songwriter. You understand? Although she does release, she does collaborations. Her collaborations with other artists actually make it to the but it's not her interest. She doesn't sell herself like that. It's just the style of writing. She believes in it, and she writes music for other artists. She's an indie artist. It works for her. That setup works for her because she doesn't want to be a commercial artist.
No, but in this
Although
case-
her music gets commercial.
But in this case, doesn't she need a label to enable her take advantage of her publishing? I mean, writing for other talents.
She's the type of an
What's
art-
that? What's that? She needs to have a depression or an enterprise that actually manages that.
I was
Sadiq,
getting-
even,
I
even
wa-
my question, the big question from what you said was, at every point when I hear the comment that she's doing music or he's doing music, but she doesn't want to get big, is it really realistic? Is it that she's not gotten big and that is why he or she feels like it? Because I think it's a conversation we even also need to properly
I
understand.
think it's a matter of preference.
But do you think there's someone who is doing music, writing, going to the studio, collaborating, and the whole mindset is that I don't want to get big? I don't know if
Ambition means different things to different people.
I guess so. And also opening shop, it doesn't mean everybody wants to own a mall or, it's a type of business you want to run and your preferences, I would say.
But I get Ricky. It's like, I mean, saying to everybody that
It's okay.
I want to open a mall. I want to open a shop.
big shop, but I
I-
don't
but
mind getting
want to-
profits.
I don't mind getting profits. I don't
Yeah.
mind becoming big.
Yeah.
Why are you in the business in the
Exactly.
first
Yeah,
place?
in
But I think
Hell-
it's just a matter of ambitions. Ambition meaning different things to people and the inhibitions they have.
She understands the music, the business music. She doesn't want to deal with the industry. She creates, she develops, she does other things in the music business, which brings her money. She doesn't like performing for certain crowds.
But wouldn't she want her rights to be duly protected?
That
and-
I'm
and
getting to
managed?
that point. She's quite aware of that side of the business. She
On her
has a
own.
publisher, yes. She has a publisher. She has a music lawyer that she works with. She has a management.
How's she
Some of the
funding
big-
all of that?
But the point is that some of the big publishers, well managed, the well-oiled operations, are
They
owned by
from the labels,
Yeah,
yes.
they are
they're
like
from the
extensions of the
yeah.
labels anyway.
So it's just that in her case, but I'm trying to run away from just speaking about a person. In an
yeah,
artist
yeah.
case,
Yeah.
In an artist case, you'll just discover that owning your own masters benefits you longer because of the type of work you do. The catalog that you have is going to survive longer. Her thing, she's more into licensing her music than
yeah.
performance.
But you see, this conversation about owning your own masters today, it's become very difficult for an artist unless you're not going to collaborate or do work with others to fully own your masters. I mean, and that's what I was saying to somebody that today that vision or that principle somebody like Sarkodie had, it's defeated by the collaborations it's making. There's a lot of the collaborations, unless you didn't collaborate with talents that are owned by the labels.
Then half of them are, yes.
So
still
then it
do.
means that they have a bit of your estate,
Yeah.
which is what you're trying to prevent. But today it's not possible to do
not
that.
possible
Which
to
defeats the whole
completely-
which
yeah.
defeats the whole basis of not wanting to associate with a label because the idea was that we need to keep our masters, right?
Yeah, but
But-
Sadiq,
but is it
He
is it
keeps his
feasible?
portion, though.
exactly.
He keeps
Yeah.
his portion.
Of course,
He
you keep
not
your
wanting
portion, but
to-
the point is that today others have a portion. And most important, because they are labels, they can do so much more with your portion
than
that
what you can do
make.
yourself.
That you can
No,
make.
that's definite. That's true.
That's
Like I
true.
said, it's an investment. Labels are investment. So if there's a great business mind, the only issue with labels I have is that people go sign contracts or go into agreement with less information. They're misinformed
Right.
most of the time. So they don't make the right decision. They don't understand the business they're operating in. You might be thinking you're opening a business for sneaker and you're actually operating in IK.
Yeah.
You
but-
understand?
So the
that's-
solutions to
that's
this would be to
solution
have
to it's
more informed talent.
more informed talent,
But
development.
that's also a stretch, because look, and it's not even an African thing, or it's not even a Ghanaian thing.
it's business.
It's across the world.
It's business.
A lot of talents or creative are wired the same way, because
They don't care.
it's not about they don't care. I mean, if you burden them with,
With
the music
having
business.
a full understanding of other parts of it and taking control of it,
Yeah.
they'll probably not be as creative as we have in them.
It's true. That's what I'm
Then-
saying. Sometimes I'm not saying take full control. Understand what you're getting yourself
Because
into.
I think about it, and the more reason why I continue to respect people like Sarkodie, it's also the fact that, look, even I came from being a creative into an entrepreneur, into a
Yeah,
business person.
yeah.
So I understand the processes, right? And for an artist like Sarkodie, you have to think about writing and producing the next banger, and think about
your rollout
your,
plan.
your rollout plan.
Yeah.
Think about
the
your
funding and the
publishing,
financing
your
of it,
contracts.
your contract and partnerships. Now, gone were the days where, and I like the fact that he spoke about it in the Hennessy Cypher,
Right.
where he spoke about the fact that now, even when what used to be a very easy way
Easy,
of
yeah.
collaborating
Has
has
changed.
changed and become
Yeah.
very long now. Now we are at that point where it's just not even easy to get a hit song today. You know, previously you could just enter into a studio, your friend could just give you a song, and then boom, you're gone. But
And-
today the producer has published it,
Yeah.
tied
It's
to a
true.
label.
It's true.
When you enter a studio, the other
Sometimes you
artist-
can't enter a studio without
even
understanding
a
the
contract.
split
The
sheet.
split
Especially, yeah,
You
exactly.
understand, yeah.
I mean, the artist you're going to feature is actually also signed to a label here. And
Yeah.
actually, his equity that would come to rub off your song, the investment that actually built that equity came from
On
the
your
label,
song, yeah.
right? And then obviously beyond that,
It's true.
now you have to deal with all of that, the legal aspects of it, which the label could have actually invested in.
Help, yeah.
The good part about it is that the legal department have like years of experience and institutional memory that can always bank on, and things are easier and all of that. How does an artist continue to stay independent and still be able to take it to the next level and go the extra mile?
So, Sadiq, for me, where I see the solution or what we are always missing is, again, the fact that we always, the whole conversation is always on the artist, on what benefits the artist. But let's say this: if you're working with a label and the label is
But
actually
artistry actually drives a business.
not
talent
just
and
that,
artistry drives a business.
Well, not just that.
I know.
I feel it is
It's
the
a value
yeah,
chain.
exactly.
It's a value chain.
Yeah.
But the primary thing that brings out the value chain together is artistry.
But Sadiq, what I'm trying to arrive at is, at this point, what we are saying is we are expecting that because the artist is working with a label, he needs to know certain things.
Yeah.
But for me,
What's the point?
yeah, what she was saying. But for me, it shouldn't always be the case
And
because
for me, I think that's not even feasible.
because
you're
if
burdening
a
them with so
label is
much.
actually signing someone like a Sarkodie, or let's even use a No Live the Boy, clearly the other benefits of the label, which we expect to go to the artist, may not directly go to the artist, but go to the other people that are working
The
around.
value chain,
Exactly. So that means that now today, an SMD, a vampire, or a Dempsey will begin to understand the concept of splits, copyright, clearances. So even if the artist doesn't know
Hence why label deals are good.
exactly,
But I don't know, but I like where
But
she's going, where she's trying to break
the
it down in terms of
inform-
the info. But here's where, for instance, at what point do other specialists come in? Because I mean, you can't be informed about everything.
No,
Right.
no, definitely. That's what I'm saying. You need to understand, even independent artists need structure. They need
Right.
management, they
Yeah.
need agents,
Yeah.
but they're in control of that structure. More than in the label, you will be told maybe how the structure will function and work. because the label has done the research, they know the brand that you are,
Exactly.
and they're gonna work with you.
But
So
today,
they'll
but
tell
today
you.
you cannot be totally in control of everything. A lot of things are still controlled by the same labels that you're trying to avoid.
It's true.
I mean, the labels own the platforms.
They
own
own
the
the
DSPs.
space, they own the airplay, they
own the DSPs.
So you're competing with sharks, you know, like
Yeah.
coming from as a goldfish from a tank. It's true. It's
Yeah.
true. It's brutal. It's brutal. But I think, like I said, if you have good business ethics, it's something that you can exercise on your own, especially when you're in a development level.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying it depends. Not every artist you can advise and say, take an independent, take a label contract. I would say, I mean, there's a lot of artists that you'll find who, like Olive Boy, for instance.
Yeah.
Even when I first heard his music with Dempsey, I knew,
Right.
there's no
Yeah.
way he can be
Yeah.
independent. There's no way he can play
can
that
be-
pool.
yeah.
There's something bigger here, and it has to go. So even if it was a personal conversation I would have with him, I would say the same thing. Take the contract.
Yeah.
Don't do the work.
Yeah.
Rather understand and be informed when decisions are made. Get a proper team. Get people who take care of you. Because also, we were talking even off air now about management.
Right. Yeah.
That for independent artists, as labels, the pressure of work and babysitting the artist get absorbed by the
By the
manager,
management.
but then the value of the manager is always missed.
Yeah.
Of the type of work that, because he's working.
That's when when there's the existence of a label or the lack of existence of a label.
Well, either both. It's worse when it's independent because the label manager definitely works as a slave.
Right.
It's better when there's a label because the only thing that the manager
You
probably
mean the
does
artist
is
manager works as a
overseeing.
slave?
You work as a slave in an independent.
When in an
yes,
independent situation.
yes, you will work as
That's
a slave.
true. I agree.
You will definitely work as a slave. But in a label, you will work as an overseer.
Right.
You understand? You'll manage.
Right.
So it's easier. While on the other side, you do the groundwork, you do the soldiering, you running, you putting together all the dots yourself. So that's
Which
what
is
happened.
good.
No, Sadiq, because it's also risky because I as an artist can wake up after doing all the dirty work for you.
It's
the
gone.
artist can wake up
It's
today and
gone.
decide that I'm stopping music or I'm calling it quits, and
You
it's
have
your loss.
The question we need to ask
So
is
you
that,
as a manager, you take the fall of the investment.
Exactly.
But in the industry, in the music industry, the label takes the bad investment.
yeah.
is it possible to really achieve one's full potential today without the help and enablement of a label?
It's crazy, Sadiq, to even answer that.
I mean, because when we come into Africa today, I mean, all the top talents that have become a standard
global
for
standards.
global standards and even become models for the industry back home couldn't have gone to that
this
full
far.
extent
Yeah,
without
without-
labels, because it would obviously be because of the labels' investment
Of course.
and having to
Their
recoup
visibility,
their investment.
their-
That's why the labels will go to the extra mile and have relationship with the likes of Live Nation to elevate and to
yeah.
promote and to ensure that your brand equity is so strong in market so you can reflect on the investment, the returns.
Sure.
And
Right?
Sadiq, one
And
question.
At the end of the day, I mean, they get it. Question is, look, if you have a master's as an African artist today, 20 years down the line, if we are projecting, what exactly are the avenues? What exactly are the things that you can
And
do?
chances are 20 years down the line, also the agreement you have with the label, they'll be releasing your masters. You know?
And Sadiq, even on the back of that, in Sarkodie's verse, and I want us to discuss if that is realistic or not. Because in his verse he said, once we began to sign certain documents, they began to open the way.
Yeah.
You know, is it really true, or it got to a point that African music was just popping and they just wanted to also get involved? Was it because, do you think,
Look, people.
wait, do you get a question? The question is, do you think African music was popping well enough or to the point where they decided that, look, there's something happening here and we need to go there? Or they actually began to, African music now began to pop because they started signing? Because in Sarkodie's verse, he said,
I mean, he's made some very notable points.
yeah, that
It's
the songs...
it's a chicken egg situation, I think. At some point it happened because you started signing, things started opening for certain artists, but there were certain artists who needed to be trailblazers first. You understand?
Yeah.
And for them, they didn't sign before.
Right.
They're the ones who alerted
Right.
the
The
markets
world, okay,
which
yeah.
we
Yeah.
are here.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
understand?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying it depends which type of an artist you were.
But at what point
They made some
Yeah.
investment and couldn't possibly take it on the road like
Yeah.
those that are to sign deals.
Yeah.
But Ricky, look, the thing is this. These people like to mind their business. You don't invite me in, I mind my business. Invite me in, or I come in if I see a potential to have a conversation. If you do it, because they value their time, they value their investment, they value everything else. They don't have a deal with you. Why would you want them to actually open up
Yeah.
their market? They don't, there's no obligation for them. But obviously for a lot of people, if
And
you have
they
an,
have
it's
a-
like the lawyer.
They have
If you don't
existing
invite the lawyer,
Structures, yeah.
yes.
And their ecosystem is now paying, or it's running on its own.
Right.
You
Yeah.
understand? They're not feeding it. It's just creating.
So
its
it's
own-
this
yeah.
running on its own conversation. I think when we had a conversation where I said, I think that we need to encourage the existence of labels and labels signing deals so that we can go through the mill and also gain our own relevant experiences
Experiences, yeah.
and build our own models.
That's why I definitely agree.
So that we can
100%.
also get to that point where, because of the existence of, because I've always made this point that when people say we lack structure, when they say that this, what I hear are two things. One of it is the lack of the existence of like well-run or well-operated unit of industry. And these are some of the things that the labels bring.
Right.
The labels bring you the well-run,
Yeah.
well-oiled units of industry. So if you have about 3, 4, 5, 6 labels that are well-run in industry and are going to be ethical, it helps to structuralize industry. So for instance, if we are well-run and have an understanding of the business and have all the various different businesses in place, that is when we will know that if our talent that is signed to us is going to sample a particular person, we need to do it well.
Yeah.
So then we reach out to the other label to try to clear what they call the paperwork. By doing that, right? By doing that with the label, what we've done is actually fix a challenge
certain
that used to
process,
be
yeah.
here.
Yeah.
That is continuously,
Yeah.
it's here. Again, our insistence of our talents, split sheet and document and clearance, because essentially the reason why there are delays for clearance is not because they don't believe it would work. It's because they want to safeguard
Yeah.
the investment they've made for the
They've made,
future,
yeah.
both for the talent and both for their investment.
Right.
That way, things continue to get structuralized, right? It continues to get structuralized. And that's why I have always been of the opinion that, look, and beyond that, the kind of money we need to be able to go the extra mile or achieve full potential doesn't sit here.
Yeah.
It doesn't sit in markets because we're still Africa is at that point where we're still exploring or exploiting our natural resources and getting certain few things right. These guys are 100 years ahead of us
That's
regarding
the
that.
thing. That's the thing.
And so they've got to that point where there's a lot of funds available.
Like 5
Yeah.
generational experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, 5 generational experience and the funds available
funds,
to be able to
generational
that they've
wealth.
got to that point where they've explored everything else that exists. So they are looking at different areas and the creative industry continues to get that kind of funding. But here,
They've
the
worked
big
on
conversations
systems
is still
and they were
yes.
faulty.
Yeah.
And I agree.
The
and
big
with that-
conversations we are still not even taking full advantage of agriculture, of our natural resources, of our democracy, of our governance systems.
yeah.
These things continue to attract investment. Health is still a big issue.
It's a big
Bread and butter is still a very big issue, and so this continues to attract a lot more investment, a lot more capital than in the creative industry.
That's
And so
me.
if people that are coming from other markets and understanding and bringing in money, also because they feel that
So don't
there's
you
a product
think
that can be taken on the world.
is because of that, because we're still fighting bread and butter issues? I
Yeah.
mean, our conversation are well on the grassroots level.
Yeah.
So don't you think that maybe the independent artists are trying to bring that economy chain slightly closer? Because then when you're signing to labels and so forth, a chunk of our percentage goes foreign. It's still not dominated by us. Unless our record label are starting to function better and they have the capital to.
But that's someone
Promote.
But again,
You
I
understand?
mean,
So, but if we're looking at contracts right now, I think independent label will be keeping the circulation of the income closer than the industry. So that will be my argument with it. And that would be my support to independence, to say,
No,
listen,
but look,
in that sense,
but then again, when you look at it, regardless, even when the label are giving you money, even from outside, think about it. There's a certain level of capital flight happening because the capital in this
Okay,
case, because of the
true.
label, is coming from abroad, and this money is coming to you and a value chain within an industry that is based in Africa. Think about it that
does
way.
it get based in Africa or in the UK or US
No,
when an African artist actually has a business?
The spend eventually. Well, in the last few years, when you become bigger, we will notice that they try to. So a few of the African stars now are more domiciled abroad. I mean, the only challenge, and where you probably would agree with Sarkodie, is that, I mean, there's so much focus on the commercial returns and
That's
milking
what
it.
the label is selling. That's
Yeah.
what.
Yes,
that's part of your contract.
Yes, ahead of the cultural relevance.
Yeah.
And so now I notice that even in African market, Africa, which is a lot of the country markets, I imagine, are having to pay so much more than people in the more matured markets to see our
course,
stars.
Yeah.
That's one of the
we're more of
disadvantages.
a risk because we are starting up businesses.
Yes, that's
than
more. Yes, that's
established
more.
ones,
That's the one of the disadvantages.
Yeah.
And then now our African talents are traveling across the world, which is what we've always been looking out for them, right? But
Not in the exchange rate we are hoping
yes, but
for.
don't forget, whatever percentage of whatever they make, a heavy chunk of it comes back home.
That
It comes back home
definitely-
in a lot of things.
It's a great point.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
they would acquire real estate, or they would get involved in real estate. They would definitely have certain investments setting back in your homes. The
But
good
it's for
part-
them.
But that
No,
only
no, no, no,
if
no, don't forget the
artists
value chain.
understand if the artists understand their
even
contract.
when they do not know, I'm saying that even when they do not understand, definitely when you give the money to the African person or the African talent, one way or the other, that money, even if he's deliberately leveraging it for anything, it will end back in the market.
Right, I get you.
Look, either he's hiring people that are working for him in the market, even if he builds a house and it's not here 24/7, he would have somebody watching over the house, and the funds will circulate one way or the other
Circulate,
within the
for
African
sure,
market.
for sure.
You know, so I get it, and I agree that the revenues will go back because the investment didn't come from
You see,
you.
with the culture of Ghanaians, because Ghanaians actually, which is what I was just at awe with when I come. You guys are working on a cash basis system where you build cash, you buy a car, it's cash. I mean, in SA, it's different. You know, people can get things on credit. And you'll find that most of the artists, because of that system, maybe they haven't developed in their head how to actually manage their finances.
Right.
You'll find artists that don't have houses. They don't own their house because their cars because it's been on credit for like 5 years. You pop for 3 years. On the 4th year, everything gets dropped. Your car gets collected because now you haven't finished the payment plan. So there's a lot that's going through for South African artists. That's why I'm saying also the models that we are talking about, there has to be shaped or constructed so they fit certain areas. Like you wouldn't have the same model for Ghanaians as South African because of the mindset,
Right.
like what I've just said. How South Africans are dealing with money is different, and how Ghanaians, like when you said when they get money they'll come back home and build. I'm like, that's definitely for sure with Ghanaians. I can't confirm it with South Africans. You
Right.
understand? I can't. It's chances are most of them might, but because of management of money, we've seen so many. I think yesterday I've also mentioned it that as a manager,
Most of them
artists,
are largely based back home,
Yes.
except when they are traveling.
they're traveling.
And
But the
and
older
touring.
the older generation is getting better with our generation because of the management and understanding of the contracts they're getting into. But most of them die without nothing. They have nothing to show. Then the state has to bury them. People need to donate. You understand, especially the elderly ones. It's based on the contracts they had, which were like based on the Jim Crow, policies and so forth. So if we as Africans labels would be good if we change them to benefit us. And we try to change the law to benefit our artists. We try to make sure the circulation of the currency is within then it will definitely benefit us. But if we're just going with contracts as they were based,
I think one of the one of the good things again about Sarkodie's point that he's raised is the increase in awareness, and then also possibly creating a narrative that may compel industry or even international music businesses coming into Africa to find unique models
Yes.
Yeah.
that works for African talents.
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
But here's where I think that I think people like Sarkodie and a few talent that also think like him should also possibly think about possible partnerships
Of course.
with some of these labels where
Yes.
I mean they are there, they are big, they've got local relevance, they've got local respect, local attachment.
muscles,
They should
man.
bring a lot of they should bring that muscles to bear in like partnerships and creating like
Sadiq,
labels.
I think it's
so they can take that investment and then they can take that investment and because of their view, their mindset, they could now invest in the talent and do it right with the investment.
and like I was saying, I think
Because I think a
it's-
Sarkodie or a talent like him will be in a better position to convince international labels, for instance, to get into joint ventures with them to create that model that we seek for Africa.
because I was coming to that, like I was saying, I think they're now beginning to understand and get the concept, because now it's no more, we are not getting 360 deals anymore. You know, like you're saying, talking
Yeah.
about partnerships
Management,
now,
publishing, everything lumped
publishing,
into one.
distribution,
Oh, hectic.
even JVs. There are deals that are more like partnered, like partnership kind of deals, and I think it's right. That you're saying this.
The models are shifting.
I've noticed a JV with
Universal and
Davido and Steve Stout's company, United Masters. I think they started a JV. I don't know. I think it's an incubation of sort. Like it's exploring a new model.
It's like a pilot.
It's like a pilot of a sort to see
Yeah.
what model will work within Africa. Because I mean, of course, there's some awareness about how the business had gone in other markets, and so everybody's trying to protect themselves.
what do you see the Universal Mavings deal as? What do you think?
One needs to fully understand what it is. Was it an acquisition? Was it a JV?
Yeah.
From what we hear, I mean, the books hasn't been open for us to understand and know. But from what has been reported, it seems more like an acquisition.
Full acquisition.
Well, I mean, you don't know who owns what, but it almost seems to be an acquisition where the business was acquired by Universal and the investment was put into it. This would be different from what I think they had from when they had Kupenda Holdings, which more or less looks like an investment and also a JV of a sort, working with them. But I don't know, but in the more matured market, in South Africa, obviously in Africa comparatively, in terms of the music business and structures, is more mature than a lot of the major market. What role does the state play in all of this? I mean, beyond making laws and trying to create the acts that creates a fertile ground to structuralize the industry. What are the other roles that the states, from what you know, have done or continue to do to kind of whip everybody into line?
They have subsidies that artists can apply to.
Okay.
That funds their projects, fund their travels, fund their ideas, creative ideas. I mean, they get from 350K to 500K. Normally, sometimes you just need to draw up a business plan and have your proposal, stand by with your budget. Then half of the time, others will get maybe 60% of the budget they've put into 70%. It's not normally 100% of what you've requested. But we have NAC, Arts and Culture, where it's an open national call for applications to come through for artists, events organizers, and so forth.
Do these often attract like competitive artists or just about anybody?
They do, but also the model still needs a lot of cleaning and shaping to be a well-oiled machine. A lot of artists are complaining. Just this afternoon, I was speaking to an artist who was rejected for emergency funding, and she was going overseas. So she needed to then start inquiring, take it, escalate the issue, because she didn't understand what she missed. She was not she was rejected. She was rejected. She was not awarded the funding. So she had to take it through to find out what's the situation. And obviously then you'll find there's certain discrepancies that are in the system. So now it's in a certain judicial where they have to find out what's the situation. Someone is going to be fired or whatever. But those are the systems we're working with currently.
The subsidy system, does it operate more or less like a revolving fund? Are they supposed to bring money back, or is it just like
No. Here's your money, do your project, report. Report to us if you've done it. Show us statement. Show us how it was done. And I mean, if you report well, that means you're eligible for other years. If not, then you get blacklisted because that means you've used finances from the states and you can't account for them. So that's where we are.
Do they put certain experts or specialists at their expense to help them do that? Because a purely creative person having to burden themselves with
that's where we
all other parts, because reporting is not easy.
This year that's the issue. That's part of my reporting to the system to say artists are struggling, hence development and having managers assisting them. Others, their applications are getting merely rejected because they don't have patience to read. They don't upload properly. It's simple things, technical things that get them disqualified. So we're getting into program. NSC is normally offering online classes where their agents will sit in, give information to artists, how to upload, how to apply, what are the requirements and so forth. And it's not just NSC, we have SAMPRA also, which is a music division for publishing some. So also they fund, and their mandate mainly is funding women. They have a separate funding, which is just focusing on women. Then they have a general funding also.
But these sort of initiatives is more for social impact more than competitive value enablement.
Definitely, but for some artists who are
social
quite business,
social impact,
it's definitely that. It's definitely that.
Yeah, so I mean,
But for artists
we're
who are
looking
quite-
at it more from a more competitive.
Corporate. No, for artists who are great at that, they use the subsidy to cover certain small costs for them. They can cover flights, they can cover certain, like a production plan to do bigger things. So the money coming in also helps. It takes away a chunk of a budget from an artist sometimes, yeah.
Boss.
So that's what we had.
Boss. Okay, nice. We'll continue. Yeah, I mean, still listening to or watching white mics. I mean, here, this is a podcast that regularly, as and when we find the time, we try to delve into a bit more of the deeper issues of industry. I mean, to see how we can get industry informed, get fans informed, get the states or get key policymakers or decision makers informed about the things that needs to be done to enable industry. And here, I mean, we're speaking to never.
Yes, almost.
I mean, I'm just trying to trust myself to the microphone. Never. I mean, never works when continues to work with the likes of platoons, also freelancers.
Freelancing with a lot of artists.
And I have
production and events.
Incredible experience. Yeah, incredible experience for the South African music, media, and entertainment industries. And so we're having to have a conversation on the back of what Sarkodie had expressed last week relative to models, trying to analyze or trying to discuss whether we are at a point where we need the labels or we don't need the labels, whether what is good, what is bad for us, and so this is the conversation that we've been having in the last few minutes. I don't know what Ricky has to say in the last comments that we made.
Yeah, for me, there's one question I also want to ask. I mean, generally, still on, the labels. I wanted to also understand at what point did record labels begin to have relevance or impact in the African, music industry? Like, how long has it been? Is it a decade?
It's been
20?
It's been forever. I mean, was it Polygram or Polyglot that has been in Ghana?
So I'm trying to think.
I mean, proper major labels. I don't mean people. So
in
some
our
of the
side, it
releases
was like Gallo.
Gallo was big. Gallo has been there for some time. But some of the labels, what is happening is that a lot of labels have evolved, been acquired, had gone defunct, and all of that had connected to the three mega labels that we have in the world: Sony Music, Sony, Universal, and obviously Warner.
So
but I think they've been, but in the contemporary period, and if I get a point, I said we need to look at it from distinct market to market. And in South Africa, from the 90s, I've had the presence of labels.
Man, I'll take it back to 40 years, even before our democracy.
Yeah.
Labels have already been operating.
So why was there not so much impact until now? What happened now?
Restrictions, I mean,
Yeah.
apartheid, restrictions, sanctions, like Africa is going through the most.
And then obviously,
There's a-
obviously there's no globalization.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
things had to be done like
Yeah.
manually. That was often very, very difficult. We didn't have international media platforms to amplify our content, our stories to the world. Whereas they had that.
Systemically so.
So-
It was,
Yeah.
we were minus.
Where they had that.
Yeah.
We hadn't built that distribution prowess, global distribution prowess. But today, technology, globalization has changed that.
So how was the likes of those CBSAs, FLS going international, going global?
They actually had to leave their primary market and actually go to be stationary or
Yes,
And it's
but
resident
how
in
was
the
that
secondary
happening
market.
then?
Asians, which you still find today.
Yeah,
That's why you'll
exactly.
find a lot of African culture in France. There's still that big exchange. It's the same thing. You'll find white Asians do come to Africa and they'll take certain products.
In the French case, I think it's immigration.
Yeah.
And then also
Yes.
there's a unified language in all these countries.
Different, yeah.
Don't forget that until now, when the coup started, a lot more of the French countries continue to spend CFA francs, which has been, so they've had like that unified language and they've had that unified culture because France is like their opinion leader. Like Paris, essentially, France is their opinion leader in a lot of things. So if you go to a French country today, a lot of what exists as a culture of the French, of French people, still exists in the French countries, in Francophone countries. So I mean, say for instance, some time back I went to a conference. We're in Botswana, Gaborone, and by midday, a lot of people from the Francophone countries had picked their bags and were going off. We're going to have lunch and go back. They're going off and we're like, no, are you going? I was like, we're going for siesta. They're just going to sleep and freshen up and come back again. And that's their thing, apparently. And it's the same thing that pertains in other countries. So they've got a lot of these, even though there are differences in traditional language, tribal affinities and affiliation, that French language and that culture sitting on top of it, give them that unified culture. And so once they began to meet up in France, and there are a lot of immigrants in France.
The increasing of immigrants
Yes.
and also the liberals.
And the activities.
It was cool also for liberals back then, you understand, to look into Africa, to look into something, opposing their own laws in their own countries.
Yeah.
So affiliating themselves with African artists and so forth was part of that, what can I call it? I don't say rejecting their culture, but also imposing.
But I think and if you look at it, building on the Francophone thing, if you look at the Osibisa scenario, it was a fusion of different cultures, different languages, different melodies, different styles that appealed or connected or resonated with too many people at the same time.
Right.
Just like what pertains in the Francophone countries. That's what they did, because then here you had some Ghanaian talents that were predominantly playing high life. They had started off from playing traditional Akan music, Teddy Osei, his brother Mark Tonto, Sola Mafio, and a few of them, Kiki Jan, who was also from Ghana. And then they connected and created a group with others that were from the Caribbean and others that were also Black Englishmen,
Right.
So everybody brought their own style and culture. So you listen to Osibisa today, and it's a fusion. There are some songs and you listen to Osibisa that you say, this is high life.
Yeah.
But when the Caribbean person listens to it, he says it's calypso.
Yeah.
When the guy in English,
I
in
see.
Yeah.
Black English
Yeah.
listens to it, he says,
The
so it had
similarities.
something for everybody.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons, one of the ways they were able to actually push the reason, which is the same thing of what the French people bring, because once the music is coming from Ivory Coast and there are aspects of the lingua that connects to them, when it enters France, and you know how immigrants operate when they are in other countries,
They
they bundle
group each
together, they
other,
come
yeah.
together, so you go to New York, you go to Bronx, and there are different parts of Bronx that have like African immigrants, and they bundle together. They are intermarrying, they almost have similar cultures and everything. And so it's easier for the Senegalese guy to marry the Ivorian girl. And even the languages and the tribes, it's not too far off, particularly in West Africa.
Right.
So because what you know as Wangara here is Jula. or Bambara in Mali. So it connects. It's
interconnection,
Wolof,
yeah.
it's Madinke, it connects. You see like similarities in cultures and everything, so they connect, particularly West African immigrants, and that's, I'm sure, part of the reasons why they've been able to have that resonating further across. So in Nosby could release in Congo, and the next minute is resonating in Ivory Coast, in Togo, in other countries. But of course, a certain level of enablement or machinery, by the label, continues to
Continue.
contribute or assert to this.
But don't you still export your traditional music? Because what I'm seeing a lot with Ghanaian music, I mean, it's not something that will be played on commercial radio station. But then when I research, I'll find that some Ghanaian, they're the ones who, the indie festivals overseas in the UK, you find them performing. So I think that type of an exchange also helps for people to look further to something that can resonate with them in terms of sound. They say, oh, I love this, but when they start doing their research, they discover other things.
I mean, of course, look, there are a lot more people that continue to look for a refreshingly different sound because they're bored with their system. So they're looking for something unique, something interesting. And here's where a lot of our traditional sound or music continues to excite them. Like, oh, wow, we didn't think we could get this good music from here. So Wiala continues to give you that authentic originality. Our guy Santrophy continues to give us like authentic high life, very pure is high life. I mean, there are a number of them predominantly doing well. But
are mostly artists like that signed on record labels, or are they independent?
They're
independent.
They're independent. Some of them are actually operating on the fringes. They are almost seen as alternative.
Alternative. I was about
alternative
to say
is
that
not really commercial. Only,
those are the artists that I would say it's good if they stay independent because of the type of products they produce and what
they've got their own markets.
You understand?
They've got their own market.
So you wouldn't want to put
And
an
the labels
indie or alternative
ring,
music artist
the
and say,
labels
let's
will
go
ring
for
that.
let's go for a label deal.
The labels will ring that.
Yeah.
I mean, they have found their own way. But even with them, I mean, sometimes they're looking for.
They should have better management. They should have better management. With because when we're talking about a 360 deal, I mean, that's what we also need for artists to stop signing such deals that bind them that they can't even move or grow. You understand? Rather take a record label deal, but leave management to someone else, organic, and things like that. So with levels, I think the independent artists, they need to invest more in management. And then it will help their business system.
So at what point does indie or alternative artists, at what point do they decide to scale up? Because it gets to a particular point when the label talents continue to still take advantage or take control of even the alternative time because they use it as promotional vehicles. And the more they begin to go there, and the more they continue to see investments and resonate, and resonate with those audiences as well, and they also develop a taste for African talents like that, it continues to, should I use the word emasculate? Emasculate all these independent artists and obviously force them into having to, fit in. And in fitting in, it will require you to scale up. At what point do they decide to scale up?
You mean the independent?
And that's
alternative
the
artists.
Independent because they keep
Like
getting crowded out.
But like
consistently,
like you said, maybe they are okay with what they're doing in their space because like someone like Wiala, the fact that she's consistently traveling out, playing to a particular kind of audience who love what she does, very traditional, not too much of too much melodies and pop elements, they're fine.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you is that gradually, the labels and the label artists that have been sent from Africa are being taken to those places as well. And in time, they'll start to crowd them out of that particular space. Do you get what I'm saying? Okay, so let me bring it back again. Once the labels have noticed that a particular place or audience who attend some of these indie festivals have developed or are more open-minded and would accept music from Africa, they would want to introduce this music to them. by taking some of the talents that they've signed, fully backed machinery behind them to these audiences, because of course they've got African element. They always know it's like a test case that it would work for them because they are looking for numbers from everywhere.
Yeah, but
So now what would happen is that with time they will begin to use these indie festivals and these festival avenues as promotional avenues for the talents that they've signed to build traction and earn new audiences, because it's the easiest to convert because they already love African music, traditional African music, right? So gradually what would happen is that by continuously going there, this audience now would also begin to develop a taste for label-backed commercial music.
And Sadiq, let me give you a
And with
classical.
time, they'll begin to crowd
So let
these
me give you a
alternative
classic
artists
example.
out of that space.
And I think you're right. You're right because there's a festival in Ghana. Like, let me use the basic case. Imula Festival.
Yeah,
It was the festival was actually supposed to serve a particular audience.
community.
Alternative
music and
songs that you
alternative group.
hardly hear from
Yeah.
anywhere. But now that particular festival is changing and it's now beginning to become
More commercial.
mainstream, more commercial,
commercial.
because then now
The numbers, footfall
exactly.
counts.
Yeah,
So
investment.
how are you? It's the same thing. I mean, everything gets polarized. Even in SA, same thing. Everything gets washed out. Amapiano is taking over even jazz festival.
Yeah.
Like a pure jazz festival.
It's
We have
becoming
a
another-
Amapiano artist. Is like,
I don't blame them
what
because
the hell?
it's instrumentation of our piano without the kicks is jazz. It's jazz. It's house music, jazz.
Yeah,
House music came from jazz.
definitely.
It was
Samples
just
and
it was
stuff.
sampled
Yeah.
jazz
Yeah.
music
Yeah.
with kicks, and it was experimentation essentially with jazz music, which now
Increase the beats per
increased-
minute.
yeah.
and
yes,
that's it.
increased, and they became our piano. So
Oh, so
essentially,
now-
Seconds, rather.
Like from what you're saying, jazz festivals now are subtly being taken over.
We
by,
fight like I'm a purist. I'm fighting that. I'm like, oh, hold
Yeah.
on.
yeah. So
Keep
I'm right.
the space pure.
Exactly. So I'm right.
Because
I'm
for
right.
the developing artists, that's why I could hear what you were saying,
And
that
yes.
certain artists will be override
But think about
in their
it. Why-
comfort zone.
Why do you think that? I mean, because what would force the promoters of the jazz festivals to douse it or to
Because
mix it?
Amapiano has airplay.
right.
And beyond the airplay,
It
you
has-
come to realize that even the average or the typical jazz audience,
Consumer.
right?
They relate.
One of the compelling effects is to have certain talent attend their shows.
Yeah.
Which also means that even your jazz audience have developed a
The
taste,
taste
for that.
mainstream. Yeah.
And that's what I was saying to you about
It's backed up.
these audiences at the indie festivals and all of that. Because
They're gonna find pressure.
with the
Yeah.
with the push, the global push of these labels, what they are doing is that, or what it would help with, is the fact that look, there's an audience or a community that are more open-minded to accept traditional African music. Now, there's a traditional African music, right, which has been fused to what you already know. And you know that in selling on marketing, it's always easier when you are selling it with concepts that they already know, they're already using it with them. There's an instant connection.
Yeah.
So you already know your pop, your ears know pop, your ears know your hip hop, and then there's an African element of it that is brought to it
Yeah.
to create a fusion. So you already know your
It's a
Tony
selling.
Braxton. You know the instrumentation of Tony Braxton's song. It gives you nostalgia, either whether you're young
Same
when
thing.
it came about and
Is
everything.
it what's
Then-
Burna Boy's?
Burna Boy. Yeah.
Just that sampling of Tony Braxton.
Exactly.
Even my
They turned
Exactly.
my
Because
aunt
then-
could
Yes.
catch the
because
song.
then
And
Burna-
sometimes they don't know what's hitting them.
Yes. So then
That's
Burna
true.
Boy comes in with the African element that you are more open-minded to take already
And
via
something.
or alternative talents. And then when he brings it, there's a sampling that already connects with you.
With everybody,
So it's
yeah.
like orgasmic music. It's like a more forward-looking music for the African continent. And it's become like a lab. And so where I agree with the likes of Sarkodie is that when these deals, because you have to be successful, they're putting money into you, and so they're finding ways and means to get you to successful,
Yeah.
even if it means experimenting with your music and dousing the effects of it so they can get more audience. Now, what would happen is that they have a global scale that can push it to varied audiences, including the community that has continued to serve our alternative or traditional artists that would find spaces in those places. So, and with time, those spaces may not be safe again for them
the
because
alternative, yeah.
the labels are
The
coming
labels
in
are-
big.
yeah.
The labels own
Yeah.
the promotional company. They co-own the promotional company. Even if they don't own the promotional companies, they have conversations with Live Music, Live Nation, and Live Nation is one way or the other either co-founding or owning some of these smaller festivals. And so what would happen now is that they make a pitch. Look, you need to include him on this festival, but not as a way of making money, but as a way
Reach.
Yeah.
of activating the music and activating the brand. Gradually, it begins to work, and they begin to cultivate and harness those audiences, and those audiences also develop a taste for those music.
But
You know,
Sadiq,
which continues to attract a lot of that push to them. And so, before you realize, if you're having to
Created a
leave
culture,
spaces for,
yeah.
let's say, 5 African music because of an audience that are more open-minded, if you don't take care, you may have built like huge talent as a result of that, which continues to outcrowd the likes of Yada.
But
So the point,
for me, I think
unless
Sadiq-
there's a deliberate attempt to say, let's create a safe space for the likes of Riala and co. Other than
I
that,
think the impossibilities of that is, the labels will always want to push their artists to the bigger festivals. So
That's
it doesn't always
yeah,
start like
so
that.
most
But it doesn't always start like that.
But Sadiq, like realistically, like they would not put Rayma that they've signed on a particular festival that they know is just for 1,000 or 2,000
Ricky, it
people.
depends.
But
depends.
yes, but realistically,
Yes, it depends.
realistically, if I've put in so much money in an artist like Rayma who is growing, I would want to be finding the Coachellas and the other festivals for him to now.
Depends the level of
It depends. It's a
artists.
level.
The level
Yeah,
of
but
agreement.
When Burna Boy started the global
Yeah.
push and the global ascent,
He
do you know
would
where he
have
was?
started
Do you know
in
where he
the
was
indies,
performing?
yes.
He was
Good.
performing at South by Southwest.
Yes, but again,
Which comparatively,
but
it's smaller
exactly
platforms.
no, but because he was
So
not
that's-
the banner at the time, so they will be giving you those alternative or those Wiala platforms because they are introducing you gradually.
That's
But
exactly what I'm saying.
once you're growing,
I said it that.
you wouldn't be going there anymore.
Yeah,
But the type of music.
Yes,
even if
may
you
stick
still-
with them, may stay
yes,
with
even-
them, may
even
stay with that
in the
community.
development.
may
Even
stay
if
with
in
that
the
community.
develop-
So that
But if you're doing commercial, my question again is if Burna Boy is doing because they may test Burna Boy through that market because he was doing that purest sound that these people could connect to. Because Burna Boy had certain songs that were very, very, very fella-like, and they know that
That's
it
how
can
it's-
actually
yeah.
pass.
Exactly.
But if he's doing his usual City Boys, if that was what he was doing then, I'm not sure they'll be taking him to those
it's a
festivals.
gradual. It's a gradual.
Yeah.
You get it, yeah.
It's a gradual. It's a gradual switch. It's a gradual. What do you call it? Let me call it an evolution. So the audience, like I said,
Or
usually
levels.
starts with the audience. They profile them. These are liberals. They are more open-minded.
Yeah.
They are tired with a mundane lifestyle of listening to
Right.
a certain particular music or interacting with a certain particular content. Now they are going out of the world to look at other things that excite them, that is more artistic, that they think it's more organic or original, that they are not used to.
Yeah.
The reason why they call it original or organic is that we are so TV that we don't know it. And so, it's exciting. They're playing like it is not synthetic. So it starts from there.
Yeah.
Now, if you're having to market to the world, and you've signed a new artist, you're looking to harness a global audience, which one would you do first? The community that have already shown you from their profile that they are more than likely to interact, right? And be part of your numbers, the numbers that you accumulate or not. You start with them. Now, when you're starting with them, the good part about it is that this artist who is commercial, who you're taking to them, has elements of what your purely alternative
Sadiq, why would I want
artists,
to go to people that I know may not
they may not
grow
see
to
like that
become
because they
my
do not have
core?
too much.
Like I wouldn't want to
I would
start.
call them a starter pack.
Yeah,
They
but
No,
trigger.
these people do not grow to become just your as an artist core.
yeah,
What I'm saying to you is that, or the dangers of it is that they develop a taste, right, that converts them from
To the new sound.
purely traditional loving audience to that new sound that you've sold on them. So with time, they may look as a big platform, but you have built and moved on, and now continue to attract bigger audience.
So
But
you
what that would
bringing you bringing traditional music back to
yeah.
them.
Yes.
They will tell you, Guti, aren't you bringing something?
bring something that we've become used to now.
You understand? So we were talking about spaces. So in that case, the spaces get smaller for
yeah.
traditional
Yes.
artists. You understand?
Yeah.
But then again, the traditional circle of audience has now grown. You know, to have a different preference, which has grown, which is more pop and so forth. Yeah.
And so for me, I mean, it's I mean,
get
the
it.
conversations can go on.
Yeah.
And I like the angle that you come in where you say you rather they know it, they are more knowledgeable and understand.
Yeah, well
Which is-
informed, so they can make well informed decisions.
Which is
you know?
good,
Yeah.
if they can. But what we also notice is that often when they get to that part when they are more knowledgeable and more versed about other things, it sometimes kills the interest in
Their
other parts.
creativity.
So you don't get the best out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are usually very best when it looks like the only things they've got to sit, dream, and think about
Is their
is giving us
music.
good music
And being
and
on
experimenting
stage.
and beyond. Exactly. But when they've had to, and I've seen that happen with a lot of other talents who, the moment they got into those parts, they moved out.
Yeah.
The moment they
I
got
mean,
into
even
those
as
parts, they
easy
moved out.
as having an artist who do certain
When
artists
MI
can't even do interviews.
Yes, when
Yeah.
MI got
Yeah.
into those parts, it's almost as if he lost his creative mojo.
And you
Richie,
know,
when
yeah.
Richie got into that part, it's almost as if he got, because it's really, really
It's
crazy to
draining.
keep up within the 24-hour cycle,
is.
to keep up with ensuring that the legal elements are good and given.
Especially the legal
the
elements.
business
they
part
can
is
be,
like sorted.
yeah.
The this are sorted. It's really hectic. At what point are you going to have like space in your mind to actually create thing that resonates in music?
And that's why a lot of the
And
artists.
so that's why it looks a bit impossible to be able to have that situation. Which continues to now open up the whole idea of having an operational setup to run you. And it's either you're having that operational setup independently or it's fully backed. But independently, like you said, it creates a situation where the smaller teams that you have continue to slave. And in time, when they are growing, I mean, with time, they continuously cannot be slaving for pittance.
It's true.
They'll be looking for like opportunities to grow or opportunities to survive. And that explains why a lot of managers, even in Ghana and other markets, until now, the more they grow, they found interest in other things. And they left some of the best guys that started out.
That's
They moved on.
That's another
They
reality.
moved on sometimes away from even industry.
But I don't think it's even that. I think in Africa, we don't have a business model in the music as yet that we've practiced, and understand. So
Okay,
we're still developing, we're still also learning. We tried basing. I mean, how many managers that that have been doing it for more than 10, 15 years? None. Most of the managers are first timers.
You'll decline at a point if you don't have an operation. I've seen Langstar still operates, Ghetto Rough Records.
Oh,
but
yes.
but obviously it's not a Ghetto Rough Records of 10 years, 15
10 years
ago.
for now. And also, they've also lost
And the more talents.
relevancy,
Yeah, exactly.
in the
Because the more you
industry.
age,
There's
if
like-
you are running it from a smaller scale, you lose it. And if you are, let's say you're the founder and you moved on and you
But
growing,
because
you lose
also
it.
they were the first time starters, it's like when you start a business for the first time, chances are it's going to fail.
Yeah.
You understand? So it's that Africans, we are also in that path where failing is still going to happen a lot before we can ace it. And it's okay to fail because that's how we learn, actually. But I believe also the independent artists, they're helping strengthen. It's hard going that route, but it's strengthened the people who are working on it and who can develop and model. I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
I've trained one person. I mean, it's a small scale, but I've trained one person, and that person, like we're training, so now I have 3 people that I've trained which are coming behind me, whilst normally it wouldn't happen.
Is that a model that the South African market is heading to, where they're having to train talents
That's how you
to
have
be
to
well-versed
train.
and everything, to become independent?
Not to
than
become
use?
not to become independent. We're trying to train services, people
Okay.
to operate,
So
to
people that
be-
operate services
yes, people
for
who-
independent talents.
for independent talents, and sometimes even record label
But
talents.
it's like a trick, It's like a scam. Like, yeah, I mean, we're having to give you a semblance of what the label does, but it's actually not a label. But in actual fact, we're having to pay you just like the label would actually would have paid to keep that running, and they give it a very fancy name, label services. But it be the same thing essentially.
It's like KFC
And
and,
they-
Penny's Chicken. You're working for KFC.
I mean,
Which is
it's the same
Penny's
thing. And the other part about it is that, and I think that a genius sat down and said, well, these are the sentiments that artists are creating, and so because deals are not going to become this, that, so let's call it label services. Let it not become something that's offered by a traditional label, but by different companies that we can acquire.
Right.
And be the bankrollers of,
We're
and then let
trying
them
home.
do that. I
We're
mean,
trying
let them
home.
do that and let's see if the artists can pay. But we know that the full extent of what the label
Okay,
services
it
should do,
is
the
what it
talents cannot
is.
pay
Yeah.
that.
It is what
It cannot.
yeah.
I mean, and obviously a few of them have the culture of putting that investment they make back, unless those that have excess corrupt capital. For those that don't have excess corrupt capital, I mean, you're having to continuously plow back from
Yeah.
the limited earnings that you make, because it's also limited because there's no full scale investment on it. So there's
Definitely.
always a limit to how far you can go,
Yeah.
and how much you can make, which you probably may think, I'm making money, but the other guy who has like the full scale is actually making money.
You understand?
So the point that we're asking is, I mean, label services, which you're going to pay for, which is still going to take away
Heavy.
and have, because if you want to, whatever, after every earning has been made, if you take that away, it still leaves you with less, which is essentially what you're running away from the label. In the label's case, in fact, the less could actually even be much more than what you have
Within yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then now we've demystified the whole concept of purely owning your masters. You're
That's
part of
why I
your
would
masters.
say it works mostly for the traditional music, because chances are that type of music
and
can
then
be
now
licensed even in 15
Yes,
years
and then
from
now more than
10
ever, where
years.
songwriting is becoming a thing in
Yes,
industry,
yes.
where you are not having to write alone. A songwriter could be signed to a publisher that's owned by a label. A number of them, you release, they own like massive part of the estate. So the question that still needs to be asked is, and I understand
Is it
that we need to create
worth
our model. I think it's worth it. I think that people should take that investment, take the money, build equity, right? If it's an advance, take it, build equity, do project bills deals. The label previously was more or less like
Project deals,
you were
yeah.
signed
Signed
for a
5
particular
years,
360 for a particular period.
360 for,
But in this
yeah.
particular, it could be 2 EP deal.
Yeah.
It could be
An album,
one EP, an
album,
album
yeah.
deal,
Yeah, yeah.
and everything. But you take the advance, you use the full extent of the label and the
That's the
marketing to build the equity.
That's the well-informed decision I'm talking about, which artists don't have.
yeah.
Uguti, how do you build your equity within the industry? How do you know what?
But I think the
product,
conversation is part of it is also because there's a blanket conversation on labels are bad, and so everybody says, because my biggest influencer,
It's the
if you're
history.
looking, of course, but even in the history, if you investigate further, part of what has contributed to that narrative is because the labels don't
Excessive,
necessarily talk.
And also
The labels
excessive
don't say.
spending.
The labels will quietly be dealing with their matters in court and not really commenting or saying anything, because there's one thing anybody working in the industry will know. Publicly, you cannot take on and be
artist
an
and
artist and win. It's called fanatics. And sometimes some of the fanatics, it's more emotive than logic. The fanatism is more emotive than logic. So once he comes in, the person is actually blowing you fire, or how do they call it itself? But the point is that, I mean, I think the conversations needs to be had. I like the fact that it's been had in circles and quietly for some time. Sarkodie has instigated the conversation again. We're having it, I think, in more Pan-African, in our markets in Africa.
Yeah.
We should have it more
often.
and then to see if
I know
what will work
people
for
are
us.
tired of Africa talking, but we still have a lot to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it gets tiring
I
because
know.
we're always complaining about them.
Talking
we're always complaining
something,
about
talking and
this
not
and everything.
doing the
And they
work.
keep quiet. They are
Yeah.
keeping quiet and keep doing. Look at the whole conversation about Grammys. I have my whole conversation about Grammys creating the platform for Africa. for instance.
The
But this is a
category,
typical
the
example.
African-
Yeah.
yeah.
No, the African Grammys.
Now there's
Yeah.
an
But this is a clear example of, look, I mean, we're continuously doing our thing. You sit and talk. You sit and not find the investment. You sit and not create the avenues or your own like platforms like this to give you that much needed spotlight. And then we'll continue doing that. I mean, there's a lot of people that have their own views and opinions, something, or they're taking us off the lesser stage, but it is their thing.
It's their
really.
thing. Yeah.
You know, it's their thing. And eventually, I mean, once they are having to make the investment, let's see how it goes, essentially. But
That's
like I
true.
said, I think that label deals are not bad.
No,
I would
definitely.
suggest it for industry.
No,
I mean, to help to
definitely.
structuralize the
I'll
industry.
stick to my first, I think it was my opening statement to say, I would advise different artists in a different way. There's certain people I would say, especially your indies and alternative, I'll say take your independent deal, work with yourself. But for certain artists, I'll definitely say take your record label because it will benefit you ones and twos and threes.
Okay.
You understand?
I don't know what final was.
If you want someone to invest in you, you understand the business, which most of the young people will go for the label or the recording label option. But my thing is, can they be informed
Right.
that the value of this contract is 10 CDs, not 50 CDs? So don't go spending 40. You only have 10. You understand? Work
Yeah.
around the 10.
Around, yeah.
So those are the conversations I want artists to start having. Understand the value. Understand the value chain that you're jumping into. You understand? Then I'm happy with the record label deals.
Yeah.
You understand? As long as artists, guys, are well informed.
For me, last words, obviously, I also stand, by the fact that label deals are very important because of what it does. Sadiq knows me. I'm not too big on the frontliners, the artist. I'm always looking at the back end.
The back end.
And for the fact that label deals always enable and it actually structures the mindset of those who also work behind the scenes. As far as it actually enables them, I think these deals will always make sense or will always
For
be,
sure.
yeah.
Record labels, they can afford services, quality services also, that's another thing. So they can afford experts and so forth,
Yeah.
which maybe an individual person would not be able to
able
have
to,
access to. So that's another benefit, which I'll agree
For me,
upon
I
in
am
that
big
sense.
on I am big on the front liners because whether we like it or not, we need to accept that it's the front liners that bring everybody together in the value chain. You know, I'm big on.
I have my own.
They may not.
I can debate that, but
No,
that's fine. I don't want us to.
well,
That's also another conversation for
well,
another day.
well,
because if you think,
Yeah,
it
but
is-
let me land. You get
No,
me.
but
let me
we'll
land.
get into
Let me
it. It
land.
will also.
No. Let me land. You get me. I'm saying that.
The
I'm saying that.
frontliners.
Of course, it's a value chain. Everybody in the value chain is important, and everybody needs to get paid. And of course, when you get to a point where everybody in the value chain are well compensated, it helps you to create a more structuralized industry.
Definitely.
I agree, and I'm all for that. But what I keep saying is that whether we like it or not, even if there is money or there's operation, artistry will continue to drive. It's actually the binding point of everybody. You know, it's artistry. What are we selling? It's the products. We all come together because of the products, first and foremost.
Yeah.
Even when we have money, the money must go, the investment must go into creating the products.
Yeah,
And-
but
and
even with the
you-
product,
I'm coming.
There,
I'm
there are
coming.
different
you need
ways.
To, you need to rely on artistry to create the product.
No, but-
and to create even the more exceptional product, you need artistry. But I agree
So
with you. The artistry,
you
I'm coming.
You have a product.
I'm coming.
I have
The
a product.
artistry,
What
I'm
makes
coming. The
my
artistry.
product better than
Let me
yours?
make
It
the
is
point.
the
Let me make
people
the point.
behind it that can make your product
I'm
better
saying
than mine. So-
that's what the final thing I wanted to say. The artistry are not things that are only done by just one artist. Don't forget there are a number of artists in the value chain. There could be songwriter in there, the
Exactly.
producer,
The producer,
you know,
instrument
the
players.
yes, just in creating the product, there's a lot of people in the value chain that create the artistry. But whether I like it or not, it's like sewing the entire dress and putting it on one person to take to market. I mean, once they're going to be the face and the voices of all the work that we've done from the back, right? We need a certain focus on it's near to impossible to take them out of the conversation, even if you want to be, because all of us alone, why? If we are existing, all of us alone, without doing artistry and without finding an artist to actually front it, what would we be doing?
And if you all and everybody also that do not exist.
Exit.
No,
Exit
yeah. And
to
if we all
find jobs.
exit to find
Who
jobs,
survive?
how would you survive?
Of course, I mean, if you're a marketer, if you are a marketing
Go back to
communications person,
corporate.
you can go into corporate, work with banks. If you are if you are managing director of the label,
But
and
you'll
you
be
build
miserable.
that corporate experience, right? You could always leverage your corporate experience
Yeah.
in different places
Yeah.
because I mean you are in charge of P&L, you're in charge of the business planning, you're in charge of ensuring that right people are hired, the entire business operation is done, which is what businesses do. The only difference will be that perhaps you do not have a lot more insights and unique understanding of certain industries. But if you're smart, you could actually build that over time. So you will find your spaces and survive, But then again, you all know that it's exciting to work in the media entertainment industry.
Man,
You know you
the
live for that.
bug that bites you.
It's addictive. So, guys, thank you very much. This is White Mike's podcast. I'm sure another time we'll find some very insightful conversation to be had
There's
in
always-
industry. I'm sure. Next time, even if we are not able to have you, could get you
Zoom,
virtually
yeah.
via Zoom
Of course,
to
of
join
course,
us.
of course.
We're having a lot more of this as and when there's time. This should have been a regular every week thing. But I tell you, every time I work in the constituency campaigning and doing house tours. Even today, I just came from doing one. But I was sure to make some time. But I don't know how I'm going to make it because I'm actually getting into the very hot days or very busy days of the campaign. But for the passion and for the culture, I'm going to find some bit of time for us to continuously bring you some
stay on
unique
the
and
ground,
exciting
sis.
content.
Stay on the ground.
Exactly. So unique and exciting and insightful content from White Mics. This has been a FulLCircl production.
Thank you
See you
so
some more
much.
time. Thanks for.